just let you see the things that have been unfolded. Now, I am a sci-fi buff because sci-fi to me is real. So it's just, again, another spark that activates my DNA for me to recall and stay focused and centered on what I'm about. So one of my favorite series, little mini-series and movies was Fly 1 and 2. Okay? And truly the issue around teleportation and genetic rearrangement, which actually deals with being able to move mass from one perception of one point in space and time to another, has been something that Egyptians have been doing for thousands of years. That's actually how we came to the planet. So I thought it was very interesting in looking at, again, the exteriorization of an internal innate trait and how the difficulties of externalizing this capacity was being realized. And Fly 1 and 2 is a very good example of some of the side effects that can occur from states of emotion, if you remember the movie, from neglect and the carelessness of the scientific method. But the key here that is very important is that this movie came out in the early 80s. Star Trek constantly, most of the children are well aware that you should be able to, beam yourself up from one point to another. This is, quite common to them. But you as a parent, how do you feel about the fact that quantum teleportation basically is something that's been worked on for the last 20 years as an externalization and will be a new means of transport for those available who are willing to entrust their genetic code to someone else to move it from one point in space to another, because that's a big reality. So think about that. So I think it's just really, I thought it was just too, okay, I was reading this the other day, and I just wanted to see what they have to say. They have now magazines, as you can see, that are printed now for physicians that do nothing to deal with sexuality and pregnancy. And I've subscribed to this for a couple of years. It's just been very interesting, the perceptions that they have about male-female sexuality and where it's going. It's quite sterile, okay, in that my colleagues still have a lot of difficulties with integrating the mental and emotional bodies in sexual activity, etc., and are not able to really deal with the ramifications of what this kind of energy merging, okay, can create. But again, we now have magazines to deal with all issues of this, and I think it's very interesting that this just came out in '98, and many of the medical covers still use very puritanical images, like this Elizabethan couple, okay, when they're talking about modern day issues. So, again, everything states what the intent is, okay, rather irrelevant as to whether the person is conscious of what they were doing or not. They really tell you what their real intention is. And this magazine is just continuously flanked with Elizabethan type of icons, etc. And so this is why, as I said, the magazine is quite sterile and not progressive at all, in helping individuals, especially the patients, understand the dynamics and the potency of what sexuality is about. But again, these are issues that are being addressed, and what are you reading about that? What are you studying about that, etc.? Because if you're not thinking about it, these exemplifications are to let you know that other people are, and they're giving their opinions, and they are setting the standards. I thought this was a very interesting article that came out on the difference between boys and girls, and I think this kind of research and this kind of information is paramount for parents to understand what science is elucidating about your offspring. So we've learned a lot about the different neurologic developmental stages of males and females, the importance of hormonal influences in the development of what is perceived to be a female versus a male brain, that then actually set the tone for the electromagnetic impulses that bring about sexual attraction. There's a lot of theories that have been waged and still very much underground as to the origin of sexual attractiveness in adulthood. But one of the things that is still very much suppressed And I suspect within the next 5 years it finally will be announced that there's a serious problem in the alteration of the electromagnetic fields in males and females and the amount of artificial synthetic food that an individual eats. So you have to understand that electromagnetic orientation is passed through vitality, through the life force. And the more food an individual eats that has lost its vital potency, the more dilute your electromagnetic orientation becomes. So we might want to look at that. We do know that definitely mothers who eat a highly synthetic diet have a much larger propensity to produce children that have ambiguous genitalia and a lot of other issues. And we're seeing that. So what I call devitalized food is primarily known to you as junk food, and it's quite dangerous when you're in the process of actually creating mass in this dimension. This is very interesting to me because it has a lot of things on it. But this men's sexual circuitry, okay, was the article as to why I bought this magazine, okay. Men's sexual circuitry, and it's very interesting and very potent article about what they found. In Atlanta, where I now reside, I was asked to give a lecture to the hepatitis C support group there. And I chose to do that because, as you may now know, it's alleged that supposedly if you have hepatitis C that it's a lethal disease, and that's something that you really can't heal from. However, when I was in medical school, that was one of the things that they touted, is that out of all the organs, the liver was the one that could regenerate, and that you could lose 80% of your liver function, but you could still live because the liver would regenerate. So I thought it was very interesting that all of a sudden now we have this organ, the only organ. They would basically, take your mouth and nail you in a closet if you said that brain tissue could regenerate or any other tissue, which we now know that they all can. But to now rescind the fact that liver tissue, which could always regenerate, can't, and that now they are telling people that for them to recover they have to have liver transplants, makes you think, what is really the issue here? Well, all tissue can regenerate, and the liver especially has always been able to regenerate. So why then having an infection of the liver now becomes lethal when this was the most prolific organ for regeneration? It was not, but like I understood in science, it's always important to have as many examples of a successful experiment to really make sure that you can sell it when it's time to actually introduce your product to the market. And so if we can do so many liver transplants, okay, in the face that you're now reprogrammed to think that your liver can't regenerate, then obviously we can use that as a jump-off point for marketing and a lot of other things, but move to the next level. So I recognize that the information was twisted in the presence of an emotionally heightened experience, like, am I facing death, that people were reprogrammed to think that this organ did not regenerate. It does. But there was a need in science to be able to become prolific in being able to move organs from one place to another, and this was a very good jump-off site to do that. So now the next venture is looking at men's sexuality. And as I said, I went there to speak to the hepatitis C support group and to tell them that their livers could regenerate. And in the termination of that lecture, I had to go to the bathroom. And so we stayed there quite a long time. It was a very nice building on the medical campus there, Grady Hospital facility. And they told me that the area that I normally would have been able to go to the bathroom in was closed, but I could go downstairs. So as I went downstairs, the entire building changed. It went from, a oak-walled library-type environment to a dungeon. And I was quite sure that they sent me to the wrong place. It's like I went through a gateway at Pookrum. I just couldn't understand it. So the stairwell got real narrow, and then there were buckets and ladders on the floor and everything. So I was like, I don't think I need to go to the bathroom. However, I continued to descend the stairway. And as we tried to, in this very dark, dank, disorganized hallway that was supposed to, I guess, be the basement or some type of subterranean level, because there probably were levels below this. In this building, the gentleman that assisted me called my attention to this corner. And so he said, well, what's over here? When we got over there was this very thick steel door. It had a card entrance security key and also keypad security system. And so I was able to press my nose up against the glass and present very narrow glass to read what was on the bulletin board. It had a huge bulletin board that said that this was a national androgenetic study in prostate DNA from the African American male. So I thought that was real interesting, that it was cloaked down here, just like I said, you know, in a basement, in a cellar, where they had it under double security, where it was very clear that any African male that rolled into this hospital most likely was going to be leaving without his prostate, because they were just doing the genetic location for androgens in the African American male.